people always say, well, journaling is so great for your well-being and it's part of your self-care is to journal. But the act of journaling itself is not the self-care. It's how you are doing it and how you're pouring into it. So yes, finding a space and time when people aren't calling your name every 10 seconds to sit down in a corner to journal, that's great. That's the external. But the internal part of that journaling process is really where the self-care comes into play. And a lot of us get so hyper focused on the act of journaling. Like, yes, I found a quiet corner and I'm journaling. I'm doing a damn thing. And we don't focus on the internal work, which is don't just journal for the sake of journaling to say that's going to make you feel better and that's part of your self-care. It's journaling properly. And for me, I was journaling to say that I was journaling because that's what I had been conditioned to believe was part of my self-care, but I wasn't doing it right for me.
Hi, I'm Peavy.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Blank is a Mother podcast. We've been best friends since college, and we're using a comparative lens to share how we're coming into our power after 40.
We aren't supposed to compare, right? Well, we all know that's not realistic.
We started this podcast when our boys were toddlers. They are growing fast, and we've been growing too.
The first few years of motherhood shook our lives and friendship like no other experience has. And by comparing and contrasting our evolution up to that point in our lives and beyond, we have discovered the strongest threads of sisterhood yet.
Listen, we don't have all the answers. We sure have made some missteps.
Follow along as we do our best to nurture our friendship and build an inclusive community while making 1,000 tiny mama decisions in an unfair world. Hi, I'm Peavy.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Blank is a Mother podcast.
Today, we are going to talk about self-care as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I've been actually wanting to talk about this topic for a long time.
Yeah, me too.
But before we jump into that, I thought we could do a couple of things in ways of updates. One is that we have officially concluded our first season.
Ooh.
And we're going to start our second season of Blank as a Mother podcast. It's really exciting. And, you know, we kind of started this as a passion project. It still is. But we, had a lot of success in our first season. We got our first sponsor and we built a community and a following. And
yeah.
How are you feeling about it?
I feel good about it. It was cathartic going through it, actually, because everything that was happening to me health-wise was happening in real time as we recorded. So it was also a little therapeutic to kind of go through that with you and with our community. So thank you all for being part of my healing process. So I'm still healing. So we still have some stuff to talk about, but it was a great first season. And Peeve, I love that we're doing this together. It's been awesome.
Me too. The other thing I thought we might do as an update is, because everyone has been on this journey with you, do you want to give a quick, where you are with reconstruction and what's next?
Yeah, I'd love to. So as of this week, I am 4 weeks post-op from my third surgery. Y'all, this was supposed to be a 2-surgery deal. I have now had 3 surgeries in the last 6 months. I'm not done, but the third surgery was successful. I've had some weird reaction to some things. My body is over it, y'all, if I'm just being honest. But big picture, it was successful. And now I have one more surgery that I'm waiting to schedule, which will be my final surgery, fingers crossed, God willing, which will be to remove the expanders that are in place now that have stretched my body out to get ready for implants. And I will schedule my implants. Well, they will schedule, let me know when they can get me in there to get these expanders out, to put the implants in, and prayerfully that heals well without any issues, without any infections. I'm putting it out there. It'll be a successful surgery. And then I'm done. And it has been a journey, but I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I'm still cancer-free. And even when I'm going through all of the ups and downs of surgery and reconstruction, I have to take my mind back there. Jamie, this is temporary. The larger picture is that you are cancer-free. They got all that crap out during your mastectomy. Lymph node biopsies clean. So we're just finishing the touches of getting your boobies to where you want them to be. Boobalicious. I keep telling y'all gonna be tired of me. Every shirt is gonna be a V-neck. You thought it was bad in college with my crop tops and my V-necks? Yeah, okay. 43-year-old Jamie is bringing it back. So yeah, thank you guys for being part of my journey. And I'm almost there, y'all. I'm almost there. It's temporary. And I feel really, really good. I think we were talking last week, and I said I have this wave of just positive vibe and energy that's just there. Everything within me knows that I'm at almost at the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel really good. So thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. I know it's been a up and down, obviously physically, but also emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I actually think that parts of what you've been experiencing will come up in our conversation today.
For sure.
This is kind of an underlying theme of everything we've been talking about, but just our lives in general, like this idea of self care. And because I know you watched a documentary about wellness and it kind of brought up some thoughts for you too. And funny enough, because I was like, oh, Jamie and I should talk about this on the podcast, real self care versus what's kind of faux self care.
Yep.
Because since COVID and maybe even before COVID, but it kind of got on my radar around COVID, I feel like companies have really capitalized on people needing to focus on their own well being. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
this huge money making opportunity for companies and corporations and businesses to sell us self care, the greater us. But I think today it would be worthwhile to focus on midlife women because we're an easy target for needing self care. How did it come to light in your brain about this idea of like what's real self care versus fake self care when you were listening to the documentary?
The documentary for me brought more clearly into focus what I had already been experiencing and seeing around me. It's on Netflix, y'all. And I just stumbled upon it because, I've just been chilling out and my quote unquote self care has been watching Netflix. I came across this documentary, if you will, called Unwell, but the un is in parentheses. And it's a play off this wellness industry. There are several episodes. So one episode was about this whole aromatherapy and the essential oils,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I do have and I do love that I light. I'm not ingesting them, but I put them around the house and it smells nice. But the idea of that episode was that back when COVID hit and everybody was looking for a way to tap into loving themselves and feeling good and healthy and non-traditional medicine and healing, that this aromatherapy really came into play. Now it's always been here, but apparently through this whole movement, if you will, of self-care, it really catapulted to the top of people's brains. Like, oh, I should put a couple drops of lavender in because lavender is good for my breathing. And I should put a couple drops of eucalyptus because that's really good for whatever. But people also ingesting it. And it was this big thing. Well, come to find out, of course, that as people started selling the essential oils, number one, people really didn't understand the long term effects of what they were ingesting. And there was a bit of a Ponzi scheme going on in terms of selling the essential oils. And so it became less about the oils and what they were supposed to be doing, quote unquote, to help us, and more about how do I make some money off of getting people on my team that can sell this to more people. So the idea behind the whole documentary is there are all of these products and services that are supposed to help us feel well and to tap into our self care routines, but it's really focused on the external. And I think a lot of what we've been talking about is the external piece is one part, but we really have to focus on the internal healing as part of our self care. So, anyway, it's fascinating because there are a lot of us that say, myself included, going through my journey, I said, I really need to focus on my self care, which is journaling. And I really need to get into meditating. And I really need to get into yoga. Yeah, I've done like 3 yoga classes, but I think I'm doing something. But it's all of these things that people tell you it should be part of your self care journey. And some of those things come naturally to me, some don't. But I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to do these things because I thought that was part of my, or should be part of my self care routine. So, yeah, we'll dig into it. But I think it's a financial move for some.
Oh, yeah. There's big money to be made on everyone needing to focus on their self care. But I think what you just described is a beautiful segue to this book that I just sent you, Real Self Care. The author is Dr. Pooja Lakshman. This is not something novel that you and I are, discovering needs discussion and redirection, because I've now listened to at least 2 podcasts where Dr. Lakshman was interviewed about her book. So this is obviously a topic that other people are concerned about. And I think what would be kind of cool for you and I to do today is kind of summarize what we've learned from our investigations of this topic, but also like dig into our own, what have we been doing that has been kind of that external piece, like the quick fixes, sort of basically the fake self-care, buying into this like wellness industry that's making a bunch of money off of us, versus what has been the really like the hard work, the internal piece, like the day in and day out, the hard stuff that is actually what is true self-care, that is going to make our lives more enjoyable, our lives more healthy, and us be in turn well. We hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, she kind of walks through in the book pillars of true self-care. And, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. They can read the book too. But I'll start and then you can see what this triggers for you in terms of what you've been doing. You mentioned a few things, aromatherapy and yoga classes.
Uh-huh. I have a good one though. I have a good one that comes top
Oh
of mind.
yeah.
So you
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Well, some of my like fake self-care things that I've been doing are like every now and then going to get a massage or a facial, which are wonderful when I'm doing them for that 1 hour. I'm not saying we should not be getting pedicures or getting, massages and facials, but they're kind of like nice things, pampering. I consider them like pampering, but they're not going to, revolutionize my skincare.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to wash my face every night. It's just not going to happen, because that's not my routine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it feels nice in the moment, but it's not going to fix me. Same thing with taking a bath every other month. Do I wish I could take a bath every night? Yes. Do I? No. Am I going to?
Mm-hmm.
No. So, yeah, it's just not going to be part of that like realistic routine self-care stuff. Same thing for, going on these like nights away. And I know this is something that you are really good at, much better than me. Just booking yourself a hotel or somehow finding a way to get away. You like just get a
Mm-hmm.
little reprieve, mini retreat. And I think that's wonderful. Like we need breaks, but I don't think we can't do that every week. It's just not something we can build in every week. So again, all of these things are things that I want to continue doing, but those are to me like external things that are not moving my needle on becoming a healthier person.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I love this because one of the things that I mentioned earlier was also journaling. A lot of things that you hear are you should journal and you should write down things and it's really good for you and that's good for your mental health and your well-being. And I agree with all of those things, right? Finding the time and the space to sit down and to journal has been a struggle. I've gone really like a week and I've been really strong and then another week when I haven't. But let me connect the dots here. I was with my therapist maybe like 2 weeks ago now. And she was asking like how I'm doing, how my healing's coming along, just how I'm doing in general. And so I told her, very matter of factly, like I have been moving through this process, which everybody that loves me has been very open and honest. Jamie, you've been very in your head about what you've been going through and maybe not as connected to your heart.
Practical.
I'm a thinker. Yeah, I'm practical. So in my mind, I'm like, I have to have this surgery and then I'll heal for 4 to 6 weeks. And then I will go to my infectious disease team. I'll get my blood work and they'll tell me if I'm good to move to the next phase, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So my therapist said, Jamie, let's talk about this journaling. And I said, I'm trying to do my journaling. And she said, that's great. When you do journal, what are you writing down? Are you writing down facts? Or are you writing down your emotion and how you're feeling about what you're going through? Or are you writing down literally step by step of what you are going through? And I felt judged because she was so accurate. And judged with love because I was like, damn, that's what I'm doing. In my journal, I'm writing down step by step. I went to this doctor's appointment. It's like I'm memorializing my journey instead of feeling and leaning into how I'm feeling about it. And so I use that example because people always say, well, journaling is so great for your well-being and it's part of your self-care is to journal. But the act of journaling itself is not the self-care. It's how you are doing it and how you're pouring into it. So, yes, finding a space and time when people aren't calling your name every 10 seconds to sit down in a corner to journal, that's great. That's the external. But the internal part of that journaling process is really where the self care comes into play. And a lot of us get so hyper focused on the act of journaling. Like, yes, I found a quiet corner and I'm journaling, I'm doing a damn thing. And we don't focus on the internal work, which is don't just journal for the sake of journaling to say that's going to make you feel better and that's part of your self care. It's journaling properly. And for me, I was journaling to say that I was journaling because that's what I had been conditioned to believe was part of my self care, but I wasn't doing it right for me. So I now have to be intentional that when I'm journaling, I'm not just doing it to check my box and say, look at me, I'm taking care of myself. It's leaning into how I'm feeling in the moment and how I've been feeling going through all of this and what I'm feeling in that exact moment, not just writing down what I'm doing in that exact moment. I'm sitting in a corner with a candle lit
My
and I have
aromatherapy.
my lavender. I have my lavender. I used 14 drops in my water today and damn it, I feel great. It's like, that's cute, Jamie, but that's not it, baby. What are you feeling? So that is my global example for me of tying in the act of doing something just to say that we're doing it versus really doing the internal work so that you can do the act successfully.
That is such a great example. And I can literally see you writing down at this time, blah, blah, blah. But Dr. Lakshman uses an example that's analogous to that, which is the taking the baths, right? So she's like, if you're sitting taking your bath and you're just stewing in the anxiety of your day and going through your to-do list in your head, and it's not the, oh, I took a bath, I did my self-care. It's the, did I do the work day in and day out, well outside of this bath to manage my anxiety, to work every week on the mental health things that I need to work on so that I can sit and enjoy this bath for 1 hour, or whatever it is. So it's very similar to what you were just talking about.
It's true. We get so caught up in the act because through all of the self care marketing,
Propaganda. Yeah.
thank you, baby, that's the word. The propaganda, the self care propaganda, yeah, it leads us to believe that like we just have to do this and you'll feel great. It's like, nah.
Yeah. Like how many meditation apps have been sold to people who are like, oh, I better do my 5-minute meditation today. It's like, well, are you really able to shut your brain off for that 5 minutes? And I can tell you that is not my thing. I can't do it. I'm not a meditator. That's not going to be the thing for me because I just know I don't shut my brain off for 5 minutes and that's just not how I'm going to get around it.
Amen.
But what was really helpful for me in kind of prepping for this conversation with you was sitting down and writing a list of what are the external pieces, those sort of fake self-care acts that I do
Hmm.
that are like make me feel good in the moment, maybe, or at least I look forward to, versus the things that I might not look forward to. The internal piece that is the hard work, that is like looking in the
Hmm.
mirror or, facing your inner child, like all this crap that is like, yeah, this is not fun to do on a regular basis. But if you do it, then you can move past some of these barriers to your mental health. So I did sit down and write a list of things that I have made a lot of progress on, that I have invested in, that I think
Hmm.
are the real internal pieces of self-care. So I'm like, these are little pats on the back, I guess, for myself. But then I also have a list of things that I want to do, that I need to do, Okay, so I'm going to go through just a couple. I'm not going to be exhaustive about this, but I will go through a couple of the things that I feel like good about. Like, okay, I've been doing this internal work. This is the real self-care. This is the real deal. And then, yeah, you should chime in with what you think has been your, like, I've been doing the damn thing. Like, I've been putting in the work
Yep.
with your personal therapist. I'll already just say, like, that I'm very impressed with all that. And then I'm going to share some of the things that I want to do. And maybe that will be where we spend more
Yeah.
time talking. But I'm really, really dedicated to a workout routine. It doesn't have to be the same every week, but I just need to move my body and sweat at least 3 times a week. And in that, I play basketball once a week. And it just like, that's my church, that I need that to feed me
I love
and
that.
tap into like my core, what makes me happy and what makes me feel alive, what makes me feel good at something. And just being around people who also love the game. I think it's also that. It's just the community and the just feeling a part of something. We can talk about therapy for days, but I have my women's group that I'm really committed to every week. And then I see my personal therapist every other week. And
Hmm.
it's helped me with managing my anxiety and, like I mentioned, like facing that inner child and talking to her and trying to get her the support she needs. And it's helped me like face some difficult conversations I need to have today that have actually been really hard to do, but very successful. Like once you have them, we've had
Hmm.
really good outcomes. And so I've been, yeah, pretty proud of myself for doing that because it's hard to like face conflict like that. Setting boundaries, I feel like we could talk about that for days. I have some wins there, lots of things I need to work on in terms of setting boundaries.
Me too, girl.
I feel like this podcast has been a huge investment in self-care because we identified all of these things that we really wanted to spend time talking about and trying to like come up with ways to help ourselves, help each other, help others, and just move past some of these injustices that we feel in life in all these different realms, you know? Like it's taken a lot of commitment and we've had to like work through stuff to even make sure we can do this moving forward.
Right.
So I'm proud of us for doing this. I feel like it's been good.
I am too.
Yeah, the last one I would just say is investing in your people and your girlfriends. You know, one on one, I feel like I have strong bonds with my girlfriends, but also, you know, there's power in being with a group of people too. And I mentioned that with basketball and, you know, working out and stuff, but also just like last night, my high school girlfriends and I, we have a strong bond and we try to get together in person, but we also do, you know, like a video happy hour cry fest every now and then. And it's just,
I love
yeah,
that.
we need it. Like we all need it. And so it's hard sometimes to find the time to do that. And
Hmm.
you just have to make it a priority. Yes, I had to put Everett on his iPad for a couple hours to make it happen. And I kind of paid for it after that with him getting overstimulated. But I'm like, Mama needs this. I need to talk to my girlfriend. We need
Absolutely.
to talk about stuff that I really can't talk to anyone else about.
I love that. Whew, there was a lot there, P. First of all, I love that you/we are giving ourselves kudos because I think that is part of self-care. Because oftentimes I think we just move through our day and we just do things and we're programmed to just keep going. And a lot of us don't take a step back or even take 5 damn seconds to chill. Like, I am winning. Are there things that I could do better and differently? Hell yeah. All of us have stuff that we can do better or differently. But at the larger scale, I need to give myself kudos and credit and a pat on the back and a smack on the butt and all of those things to say, atta girl. So good for you for capturing those. Because I think that being intentional about thinking about all of the wins takes energy.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start rattling them off, you're like, I did do that. I did do that. And I will say, like you mentioned this podcast, this has been awesome. It's been self care because we've been intentional about creating content and having these conversations, but also it's the girlfriend piece because we get so caught up in our mom lives, our wifey lives, our sister lives, our auntie lives, whatever those lives are. And sometimes we lose sight of the people that are closest to us because you just assume that they'll be there. Like, oh, we'll talk about it next week. This podcast has created time, like intentional time for us to get together, to see each other, and to talk through real life stuff. So, yeah, this podcast is definitely part of my self care for so many reasons.
And one thing that you brought up, Dr. Lakshman, that's one of her pillars of true self care is self compassion. So you mentioned like
Mm,
just giving yourself kudos and taking a minute to say, like, you did this great this week, or, this felt really good and you should be proud of this. Yeah, because you're right. Like, we so quickly move to being self critical. I need to do this better. I need to do more of that. Or, man, I should have done that differently. And, just treating yourself how you would want yourself and others to treat your own child with that kind of love and compassion. We got to treat ourselves like that too.
absolutely. Social media plays a part in how we see ourselves also. And we talked about setting boundaries, right? And one boundary that I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I was gonna say that I've tried to set, and I'm gonna get a little better on. One is really monitoring my social media, the time that I spend on social media. Because when I'm laying in the bed and I have a few minutes to myself, I open up that doggone Instagram and I'm scrolling and I'm looking at stuff and I'm laughing, I'm kikiing to myself, I'm sending people side DMs like, girl, did you see this? This reminds me of us. And it's all fun, quote unquote, in that moment because I think that I'm winding myself down for the evening. When in fact, then I get off of social media and I'm wide awake because now I'm stimulated. And then I wake up tired the next morning and I'm like, why did I do that? Like part of my self care is getting rest, but I'm also doing things that don't allow me to get a full night's rest, like sitting up on social media. I'm trying to set a boundary. Like you can get on there and scroll and do all that stuff, but limit your time because not only is it not allowing you to get a full night's sleep, there's also that part of pressure that I start putting on myself when I'm on social media. As an entrepreneur who has really gone offline for the last 6 months as I've been working on my healing, when I get on social media like LinkedIn and I'm scrolling, I'm like, oh man, I used to be at these events.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be in that committee and I've fallen off the map. Are people going to forget about me? Are people going to forget about the work that I've done? Really slacking. You're home healing, but that doesn't mean that you can't be active on these things. And so then I put that pressure on myself that is not healthy for my self
Yeah.
care. What I'm trying to say in this moment is part of the self care is for me setting boundaries around my social media and making sure that I'm not comparing myself to other entrepreneurs and saying, this is what I should be doing, giving myself that grace that we talked about and that self compassion and saying, Jamie, you freaking had breast cancer last year and you're still getting through the remnants of that. Chill the hell out. Pat yourself on the back. You are smiling. You are living. Even when you don't feel like smiling, you are allowing yourself to feel those emotions now, which you've never really allowed yourself to do. There's a compassion piece. So I have to set boundaries to really allow myself to feel, to lean into that compassion for myself. When I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, girl, I know you can't really work out right now. The doctor said not to do too much, but you need to work out. Whew. And then you're like, Jamie, stop it. This is the body that has allowed you to fight through all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. It fought you through IVF. It fought you through your breast cancer journey. It's going to continue to fight for you. That self compassion is definitely a part of self care, but it comes from inside and internal conversations and not letting external factors like social media impact the way that not only how we feel about ourselves, but how we talk to ourselves.
Yes.
And that's a part of that self compassion that I need to lean in more to.
If I can reflect back onto you, I think a couple of other things that you have really been intentional about and invested in terms of your self care. One is your therapy. You have, well,
Hmm.
I think a life coach, an energy coach, a career coach.
I haven't used my life or career coach in a minute. They've been kind of on pause, but my therapist has, yeah, I've been pouring into her and she's been pouring into me.
Yeah, which is amazing. And also allowing people, well, I shouldn't say, accepting help from people. You've brought that
Hmm.
up in
Hmm.
several of our conversations. And I think that is something that is self-care. Like, we can't do it on our own. We've talked about that at nauseum. Like, we just can't. No one can, especially working moms. And so, especially working moms going through breast cancer, surgeries and reconstruction and recovery. So I think that you should be proud of yourself for doing that.
Thank you, Peeve. Thank you. You know what? I appreciate you because, yes, I do lean on my community. As we're recording this episode, LJ is in Maryland. He is on spring break from school. I just wrapped up week 4 of my healing process, and I can't pick him up the way that I know he's a big boy, y'all, but I still pick up my little man for my snuggles. I'm still limited to how I can do that. I'm still limited in some things. I was studying for my state real estate exam, which I passed yesterday. John was preparing for trials, so we said, you know what? Spring break for LJ should not be him sitting in the house because I'm healing and John's going to be in trial. And my parents and family are all in Maryland. My niece Maya is 9, and she and LJ are like two peas in a pod. Why not allow him to spend spring break in Maryland with his people? So John flew LJ to Maryland. My parents picked him up at the airport, and he has been there for a week. John goes to get him tomorrow. First, I thought, oh, that's just a long time to be away from my little man. And then I thought, he is with his people. He is fine. He is living his best life, getting spoiled and hanging out. And that is part of my self care, which is me taking time off
Mm-hmm.
and really focusing on my healing. And it has been wonderful. I have been leaning on my community and they've been showing up, and it's okay to have time away.
I have a couple other ones in that same vein of kind of reflecting that both of us have done for our self care that we need to give ourselves props for. And one we had a whole episode on, and that was our return to work episode. We will link that in the show notes because if you have not listened to that, you should, especially if you are pregnant and plan to go back to work. I think it's a great episode. Or maybe you've already gone back to work and it's in your past and you just want to have some reassurance that you are not alone in having some of those struggles. But this is also part of this book that I sent you that I can't wait for both of us to read. And that is taking back your power and empowering yourself. And I think we did that. It took a long time. It was not an
Mm-hmm.
easy process. But in our return to work, the situations that we were returning to did not work for us. They did not support us. And so we had to make a new reality for ourselves. And we had to take back our
Mm-hmm.
power. We couldn't let these people take our power away. You know, we're kind of past that now, but I still think there's little pieces where we are continuing to recognize, like, oh, I need to take my power back in this situation a little bit and not let people keep taking from me. You getting your real estate license, I think, is part of that too, because you're like, I don't want to be a one trick pony. I'm going to have all these tools in my toolbox and I'm going to be diversify, how I can bring income to my family and make myself feel, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like
Put him in, girl. You're doing it. Mm-hmm.
just how you can be, an asset to your community. And, you have so many skills. And so you don't want to just put them all in
Oh,
one
thanks,
basket.
Steve.
You're making all these baskets for yourself so you can spread your skills and spread the income too. Anyway, I think that's been something that both of us have done is just empowering ourselves, which it's not something you can do overnight. It's not an external thing. You can't buy it online. It's not an Instagram ad.
It's not. But empowering ourselves is absolutely right.
Also, this I think has come up a lot in our podcast conversations, and we've been very intentional about this because it hasn't come easy to either one of us. And that is creating space for our partners to be true co parents. And that
Mm-hmm.
is self care because when we started this podcast, I mean, our boys were little, but we were both kind of in a bad way with that whole like invisible load and everything was on our shoulders emotionally, financially, logistically, like all the things. And some of that was kind of self inflicted because we weren't creating the space for our partners to move into that co-parenting space. Some of it is the way our society is built, and we could go on for a long time with that too. But some of it was like, we need to make changes. We need to let our partners be in control. Yeah, like be co-parents. We need to take a step back. We need to leave the house or whatever there's a million things that I think we implemented slowly over time to create that space, but That shit is self-care.
Amen. I will tell you that through my journey of, surgeries, not being able to do as much, I have watched John and LJ's relationship get that much tighter because I realized that I was creating a barrier for myself because I was always hovering. Like, lady, you don't have anything else to do? Go sit down. You have a whole grown man that's a husband and the father of your son. You don't need to sit there and peep in every window like a creep and look at everything that's happening. Like, go sit down, chill out. And so you're right. And when I have took the step back and have continued to take steps back, they're flourishing. And not that they weren't before, but I was an impediment to them being able to really build a fully functioning dynamic because I was always hovering like I didn't have anything else to do. You're right. That is definitely part of self-care is to let your partner co-parent.
Yeah, and to put them side by side, that's not the quick fix. That's not the, oh, I'm going to get a night away. Oh, look, I got a break. No, it's the like every day. Take advantage of your co-parent because there's two people for a reason, if you are fortunate enough to have two people. I know a lot of people are not.
There's privilege in having a partner and being able to co-parent. There's privilege there. So we have to honor that everybody doesn't have that privilege. And to your point though, when you have those boundaries and parameters in place, then when you do take your weekend away, it really is a weekend away of you being able to breathe and chill because you're not thinking about when I get home, I got to fix this
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what's been happening with me being gone. No, you're actually able to enjoy your time by yourself because you have empowered your partner to take some of that load off of you.
1,000%. Yes. I love it when now, this wasn't always the case, but now I go away and I don't think about what's going on at home a whole lot. That's kind of a nice gift to have.
Heck yeah. And like you said, thank you for also giving me kudos earlier because I am quick to say, you know what, I'm going to take this weekend away. And I will straight up check myself into a hotel. Now, earlier, you remember in my parenting journey, I booked a hotel and I was like, I'm out of here. I need a break. A sister needs a break. And I went home like that
Mm-hmm.
night. Now that LJ is older and I'm more comfortable in my parenting stuff, I'll be quick to book a weekend and disappear and not think about it.
That's your true internal investment in self-care. And so those two things together really are self-care for you. Like the weekend away for you really is part of your self-care. We had instances where it just wasn't yet for us.
Yeah. Can I tell you one more thing that I've done to create boundaries is utilizing that do not disturb on my phone. Now, it's gotten me in some trouble because I'll put it on and then forget that it's on and then my phone isn't ringing at all today. And then you're like, "Oh, well because your do not disturb is still on, sweetie. I need you to take that off and come back to the world." But it has been something that I've allowed myself to do to set some boundaries because I was notorious for every ding on my phone looking. Every notification I'm looking. Everything is so present on our phones, our work email, social media, whatever. And so part of my self-care has been setting boundaries, even on my phone use. I talked about my use on social media, which I'm working on, but even having access to Jamie all day, every day. Sometimes I put on my do not disturb and I can breathe a little bit, not worry about what text I've missed, what call I've missed. Again, I have to set more parameters because I do miss some calls that I shouldn't miss, but I'm learning how to manage that.
I think it's amazing that you do that. And this is actually a great segue. I love that we took the time to give ourselves props and pat ourselves on the back for the things that we have done. But now I think it would be really interesting to talk about the things that we really need to do, the things that we've been putting off, or maybe just haven't even allowed ourselves to really recognize that we need to invest in the day in and the day out, the internal work. And I'll start with what you just brought up. And there's a podcast episode we'll link in the show notes that's Dr. Becky. And I shared this one with you too. And she brings this up in that episode. It just really resonated with me. So it might resonate with some of you too. But it's that our generation of people, this isn't even just about parenting. This is just about living your life. And you shared this in the context of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So I think whatever hat you're wearing, our generation and the generations that come after us have so much stimulus all the time. Like you said, your phone can always ding. notifying you of something. You can always be checking out your Amazon cart, checking that to-do list off. You can always be paying a bill. You can always be signing up your kid for this, that, or the other thing. You can be on your Instagram scrolling and getting that stimulus. And there's always someone telling you what you should do or shouldn't do, or the stimulus just never stops, right? Like we are so plugged in electronically now, and we're so connected to everyone all the time that we don't have breaks. We talk about it in relationship to kids these days, like kids need to be bored. There's actually value in kids being bored because it stimulates their creativity and they have to figure out what to do with themselves, or like imagination, all these things. I think we need to be bored.
Yes.
We just have constant stimulus all the time. And you mentioned this as part of your self-care, which I do think you're excellent at, which is prioritizing sleep, making sure you have rest. You're a very good sleeper, even still to this day, which I used to be a good sleeper. And then for whatever reason, I don't know if it's having a kid, midlife, perimenopause, I don't know. You could list all the things, but no longer a good sleeper, anxiety, whatever. Lately, I have gotten into my little sleep gummies, which, I'm not into the drugs.
I didn't know you were doing sleep gummies.
I know, right? Yes, I should have them so I could show you, because I'm not about that. Like, THC is not my thing. And I don't think there's a lot of THC in these. But let me tell you, whether it's placebo or not, they are helping me. And I don't take them every night. But I finally was just like, you know what? I need sleep. I need to feel good every day. I need to be able to feel like I can live my life that day and do the things I need to do without feeling exhausted. And I'm just not a napper, so I'm not going to nap. So, yeah, I've been trying to do that. But back to what I need to do better of. And I think these two things, at least for me, are related. Being able to sleep and actually rest and take downtime and turn off, set a boundary for myself. I have been intentional about boundary setting in other parts of my life. I have been shitty at setting boundaries for myself for what stimulus is coming into my eyes, my ears, my brain, my heart at various times throughout the day, the night. There have been nights where I'm like, oh, I can't sleep. And then I'm trying to check off my to-do list on my phone in the middle of the night. It's like, no, take a damn sleep gummy and just get your damn rest. So that's where I'm going, but I have so much work to do, and I have to like really sit down and be like, I can say that till I'm blue in the face. I need to set a boundary about the stimulus, but what does that mean? What are the actual steps that I need to take? Like, don't check your work email after 5 p.m. And I have been better about blocking time off of my work calendar. And I think that's an easy thing where I can just like block the time and no one can make a meeting. And I'm like, okay, that worked. Oh, look how beautifully that works. How do I do that for myself? I need to block off time where you don't open these apps, or, you don't touch your phone, or you put your phone in another room when you go to sleep. Or anyway, there's just so much around boundary setting for myself for the stimulus that is constant if we allow it to be, which I'll speak for myself. I have allowed it to be constant for so long. I think that is a big part of why I got these bags under my eyes and I'm not getting real rest, whether I'm awake or asleep. I want to start watching TV. I'm like, let me get into a show where I just turn my brain off and I let someone entertain me.
Listen, the fact that you even have a TV in your house is winning, because I remember a time when you didn't even have a TV in your house, and I was like, I love you, and this is amazing. We're just going to look at each other? That's cool. I know what it is, and that's what we did, and we had a blast with it. So even the fact that you have a TV is, yeah. But I hear you, P. First of all, I did not know about the sleep gummies, and that is amazing. I know a lot of people that have sleep gummies or sleep support, and even though I'm relatively a good sleeper, there's still nights when like I cannot shut my brain off. So drop some of them bad boys in the mail to Florida.
I love them.
And I know lots of people that use them. And I love how cute you are. You're like, and I'm not into drugs. I'm like, well, PV, it's a little different, baby. We're not saying you, like, lady, everybody is using a gummy of some sort. But we know you're not a druggie. Thank you,
I
P.
know.
And you're turning red. Oh, I'm not
I
into
know.
drugs. It's just one gummy bear. It's not three. There's a
I
little
only take a
THC.
half, by the way. And
Child,
there's CBD and CBN.
I
But
don't care if it's
the guy
CBS.
that
Take
makes
it.
them, that
Hmm.
that like manufactures them, that I bought them from, I was like, I don't do THC. Like, I'm not into this. He's like, well, if you took 3 of these, you would be pretty high. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'll just.
You are the cutest person I know. Meanwhile, I'm like, good for you. My whole face like, PV's taking gummies? This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One thing I think that I need to do better, well, they're not one thing, there's probably a list of them, but the one that I'm going to talk about in this moment is, and this has been a process, removing myself from the corporate trauma that is still very much a part of the way that I move through the world. And what I mean by that is in the corporate setting, success, or at least self perceived success, was tied to being busy. There's a difference between being busy and productive. And so am reading a book that a girlfriend suggested that's called The 4 Hour Work Week. Now, let me be clear. I don't know anybody that can work 4 hours a week. But the premise of the book is that if you're productive with your time, you can do a lot more than just filling up your calendar with meeting after meeting after meeting and being busy and feeling like, yeah, I'm winning because I have all these people that are trying to get at me and that are trying to talk to me. I have meetings all day. We tend to equate a full calendar or a day of being busy with being productive. And when we shift our mindset to productive means I can get a lot done, a lot of effective things done in a shorter period of time, which then frees up my day to do more things that are self care related. But part of that self care is managing our calendars and managing our schedules. So for me, being in the corporate setting for 20 years, it was always busy, 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 busy. And that's still very much a part of my mindset, even as an entrepreneur, because I feel like I have to be busy to be successful. Part of what I'm working through in my trauma, and I probably need to talk to my therapist, Terry, more about this, is allowing myself to differentiate between being busy just for the sake of being busy and being productive. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that is self care. Also, it's setting boundaries. But like you said earlier, it's taking our power back. So my power is managing my calendar, not letting others manage it for me, meaning everybody can't just plop things on my calendar. Because at one point I would just have an open calendar, and the more things that plopped in, the more successful I felt because I was busy. So one thing I said to my therapist was, I feel like I should be doing more. Like I have this anxious thing going on when I feel like I have all this time, I should be doing something. And she's like, but aren't you? What are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm healing, but, and she's like, no, but you're healing, you're doing something. It doesn't feel like you're doing quote unquote something because your mind goes to all of these things that are work related that you should be doing.
It's not an appointment on your calendar.
It's not an appointment on my calendar. Like my mom says, Jamie, you can't manage your life. Everything doesn't fit into your spreadsheets. True statement. I say all of that to say that a part of this work that I'm doing, the area that I really need to improve in is to no longer associate being busy with being productive and taking my power back and changing the narrative that is in my head around what success for me looks like. Because if I keep leading with I have to be productive, 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 it's hard for me to shut my brain off. And then it's hard for me to do all of these other things that are self care related because I'm so busy thinking about my calendar that doesn't look as full as it did 3 years ago.
You're busy thinking about being busy.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, my mom used to say all the time when I was in preschool, and she still talks about it now, and I'm a grown woman, but it's interesting that this is probably why it's part of my narrative. If I'm digging deep into my younger Jamie, and I want to say pre K 3, pre K 4, the teachers would always tell my parents, don't let Jamie get bored. She's advanced. Don't let her get bored. She needs to always be busy. Like
Mm-hmm.
always have her doing something. And that was part of my narrative. It's like, don't let Jamie get bored. Keep her busy. Let her keep doing stuff. So
Interesting.
I can now appreciate that even being busy was part of my narrative growing up as younger Jamie. Because if I was bored and I wasn't doing something, it felt like I wasn't tapping into all of my Jamieisms. And that was seen as a good thing back then. She has a lot of ideas and a lot of energy. Keep her busy. And so that has been part of my narrative. Now I recognize, even growing up from younger Jamie to older Jamie, that feels like busy means I'm doing something. So I have to change that narrative to take my power back. And I'm working on it.
Good for you. Wow. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I'm all about that too. Productive over busy. I just
Yeah.
think 8-hour work days, 5-day work weeks are just so dumb.
Yeah.
And they are just constructed for some outdated reason that is, of course, built around some white male.
You already know.
A couple of other things I wanted to bring up. One is just traveling, because has always been a way that I feel alive. I get out of my, this is the center of the universe. Absolutely not. Get out and experience the world, experience and
Mm-hmm.
learn about different cultures. Just get outside of your own little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was COVID. Part of that was just having a small little baby. But neither of those things are true anymore. And I'm starting to travel more for work. And I'm like, we, the collective, my family, need to get out and experience and see the world. Part of being able to infuse travel into your like true life, not just, oh, I take a vacation once a year, but like this is something that we're committed to doing,
Mm-hmm.
is having financial health. So the financial means to be able to do that, which we are not there yet. So that goes back to our other episode on financial planning as a mother. So definitely listen to that one if you have not. But yeah, we are still working on that. And I do believe that that is part of self care.
Mm-hmm.
Like having all of those things in place for your financial health and well being is part of taking that off your mental load.
And when you say we're not there, you mean that you're working on creating the opportunities for you guys to start traveling.
We're working on it. Yeah. We've bought a house that's an extreme fixer upper, finally done the renovation. We're kind of
Woo-hoo.
almost on the other side of that, but still, paying it off, and
Mm-hmm.
career changes at 40, some
Mm-hmm.
big things that we've been navigating. But yeah, I really want to, I don't think it's going to happen in 2024, but I want to make that part of our family's self care, traveling, seeing the world, having these experiences.
I love that. And and I'm glad that you mentioned the money part because as we're talking, it's like we talked about there's privilege in having a partner. There's privilege also, like you said, in having the means to be able to travel. And so maybe if that's not a part of the immediate budget plan, then I think part of that can just be are there things locally that we can do that still allow us to immerse ourselves in different cultures. Like one of the times that I came to Santa Barbara, it was when Everett was newly born, and we went to that festival,
Fiesta.
the fiesta. Sí,
Yeah.
lo siento mucho. And la fiesta, we had a great time, and it was like
Hmm.
diving into this cultural setting in the backyard.
We do that every year. And Everett was in the
He
children's
was in the
parade for the
parade.
Fiesta this year. Yeah.
So adorable.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's lots of things we can do closer to home, but that's always been a part of just my identity and like,
Me too, girl. I get it.
yeah, how I feel fed in life.
Hmm.
So I want to build that back in. And I can see it in the future that it's possible for us. So we just got to make that happen.
Amen, sister.
One thing that I also wanted to bring up that maybe you share in this, but I don't know, I have a feeling you and John are better at this than Brett and I. Brett and I need to just date each other. I've already just listed all of our, kind of challenges to our schedule and our financial situation, but we probably go on a date if we're lucky once a quarter. So
Mm.
what's that, like 4 times a year?
Hmm.
I would like to do it more like every other week.
Okay. I will say John and I may be better than once a quarter. I don't know that we're much better, Peeve. Like we may be a little better than once a quarter, but I definitely think that we would benefit also from tapping back and just having quality time with just the two of us.
I can see, and I don't like this vision of, our relationship slipping into like transactional, like who's picking up Everett, what's our schedule, what do we need to accomplish this weekend while we're at home, or when do we need to leave for this trip? And those are necessary. You have to do that. That's like family
Hmm.
management or whatever. But,
Right.
what suffers is like just having fun with each other, and me nurturing Brett, which I used to do all the time
Hmm.
because I didn't have an Everett to nurture. And so all of my energy and love and care and attention went to nurturing him and our relationship. And it's just how it is when you have a kid, like those things shift, which is fine for a little while, but I want to be intentional about shifting some of that time and attention and care and nurture back to my relationship with him. With this women's group that I meet with once a week, we always set intentions like every 8 or 10 weeks or so. And that's my like current intention is like I want to infuse more fun into my life.
Yeah.
Where it's just more lighthearted and like I'm not making all these big decisions all the time and I don't feel so weighted down by all these things that we have to do and I'm not constantly busy.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to like have the means, which we don't quite have yet, but it would be nice to have the means to like have a babysitter every other week so that we can just go do whatever we want to do, whether it's walking on the beach or having a picnic or going to see a concert or maybe going out to dinner. I don't know, just doing something that's just fun for no other reason as this. We're just having fun.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? And I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you a question, and then I'll tell you something that John and I do, and we do it almost every night, which is also probably why we go to bed late. And I know y'all go to bed on time, like you should. What do you and Brett do whenever it goes to bed?
Go to bed.
Like immediately after?
Pretty much because we just have done dinner and then we do bedtime and then it's usually I put Everett to bed and Brett will do the dishes and then if we have a good night where neither one of us are just exhausted and ready to go to bed at that point because it's like 9:30 by then, which
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds early to you but to us that's like our bedtime.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, okay, we're not exhausted. Maybe we feel like having sex. If we don't, then we will like watch an SNL or we'll watch something.
Yeah.
And Brett will fall asleep within 5 minutes. And then I'm watching it by myself.
Okay, no, see, first of all, I love that you said we can have sex or watch SNL. Sex doesn't even come up for us. We're like, is LJ asleep? So what we do is, I think this keeps the fun, even if we're not like going out to dinner or doing something. But what we do, because John gets home at like late, and then we eat late,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't contributing to my waistline. But I digress. Take the dinner out, and after we do all that, and the baby's asleep. One thing that John and I do is we sit up, and we've really gotten into playing. This makes us sound like 80-year-old people. Let me just preface this by saying
Bingo.
no. Oh, I love bingo. Thank you for that. I may have to bring that in because I do love a good bingo game. We've been
Jeopardy.
playing Phase 10. We do
Oh,
play Jeopardy. We play a lot of Jeopardy. So
yeah.
we will go through our saved Jeopardy episodes and we'll play an episode or two with each other and we cackle. That's like our thing. We're so nerdy.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the game Phase 10. And I taught John how to play it. And so now that's our thing. So when LJ goes to bed, John and I will normally play a couple card games together, watch a couple episodes of Jeopardy. And that's our like time together
Mm-hmm.
before then we go to our separate quarters and go to sleep. But yeah, we keep the fun because we always have, even if it's an hour, we will sit up for an hour after LJ goes to bed and we'll usually play something and laugh and stuff.
That's dating. Like
Mm-hmm.
every night, you guys
That's
basically
true.
have a date after LJ goes to bed. You guys are like, let's kick it for an hour. Yeah. I wouldn't say Brett and I are obviously sharing the space together. It's not like we're not talking to each other,
Of course.
but we're kind of like, oh, this is what we have to do tomorrow. And I don't know. I'm making it sound a little more
You're not.
tame than
No,
it really
because I
is.
know what you're
But
saying.
yeah, it's just, we just get into the day in, day out stuff where we need to infuse more fun.
Amen. And then we need to infuse more of the three of us.
Oh, you, John, and LJ?
Yeah. So everybody has something within our respective relationships that we need to, not need to, but that we want to build on. And that is part of self-care too. I love that you mentioned that. Part of our self-care is moms is not just solely focusing on the kid and focusing on your partner too. Because when them little jokers move out, let's be real, I'm probably going to go wherever LJ is. But when he's a big boy and he's a whole grown man and he moves out and goes to college, or if he doesn't go to whatever is in his path, my mom has always said this too. She's like, your dad and I have never stopped dating. We always date because we don't want to lose sight of our relationship. Because when y'all are grown and you have your own families, we want to still remember why we fell in love.
They're such a good example.
But it's hard to do. And we also live in a different day and age, where there's just so much more going on in the world that it's harder to do. So we just have to try to be intentional. It's part of our self care.
Totally. I have one more that I wrote down for myself, and then I actually wrote two down for both of us.
Oh, give it to me.
The last thing I wrote down, and this is a good example of this, but I could probably show this face every day, is like some days it'll be 3 p.m. and I'm like, did I brush my teeth yet? I definitely didn't look in the mirror. Definitely didn't wash my face. Don't even think about putting makeup on. And this is like, I still have virtual meetings with people all day long. And I'm like, I probably should put more time and thought into how I look. I think it would make me feel better, like physically and mentally. I think if I just put a little bit of effort into my appearance, or, I love fashion. I've always loved fashion. My fashion sucks personally. Why? Well, one, because I don't have any money and I shop at the thrift store. But like, I don't just have to admire that stuff about other people, like I could embody that, whatever way that makes sense. But anyway, that's one thing. I need to invest more in my appearance just so I feel better every day in the
Mhm.
way I'm moving about the world and my community. And
Me too. That's why I'm smiling. I know y'all can't see me, but that's why I'm smiling and nodding my head because you are spot on with that. And I'm also laughing because there's a lot of chatter. Here I go, I'm quoting social media, but in general, but it's accurate, where they say, like, you get to a certain age and you just don't
don't
give a
care.
whatever. Yeah, it's like I'm going to the grocery store and if I see someone and they hug me, they're just going to know that there's fire coming out of my pits, and that's fine. Like, there's this thing about people, when the older we get, we just don't care, that we're not, that we're less inhibited.
Yeah,
But then to compare that against what you just said is so spot on because it's not for anybody else.
right.
If we get ourselves ready in the morning, even if it's something little, we probably would feel better.
Totally.
And I hate to keep quoting Maxine Beale, and you know what, I need to give her a big hug the next time I see her because I realized through these conversations all the little nuggets that she's instilled in me, and half of them I don't do. Half of them I'm like, that's great, and I keep it moving. But we have conversations, and I'm like, man, I shouldn't discredit that she said. One thing that she said, and she still does, and she's 74, is her grandmother, who really raised her, always told her and her sisters that the first thing you do when you wake up after you make up your bed, which I do not do, I admit, she takes a shower every morning and she puts her makeup on. And she said, my grandmother used to always tell me, put your face on when you wake up because you don't know who you're going to see, but also it makes you feel better. So to this day, my mom will still get up, take her shower, and put her makeup on. It's not like full makeup face. She's not pageant lady, but she will put her makeup on. And I
Mm-hmm.
know it because I can feel it. She's looking at me like, that's what you're going to wear out the house? Are you going to put on anything, like any makeup? And I don't. I will just get up. I will wash my face, brush my teeth, and leave. Meanwhile, she has makeup on and low lipstick. There is something to be said about just doing something for us, not for other people. And maybe that'll set the precedence for how we feel about ourselves throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
That takes time.
Absolutely. It takes time, but it doesn't take a lot of time.
Hmm.
That is time I think we could and should carve out for ourselves because it truly is just for ourselves. And we're kind of just shortchanging ourselves when we don't do it.
Challenge. So now that you've said that, and I agree, as I'm sitting here in my Biggie Smalls t-shirt that I've probably been wearing nonstop for 6 months, I accept the challenge that you didn't even know that you challenged me with, which is for us to show up for ourselves. So are we saying that every day we are going to at least make ourselves look more presentable for us?
That's what I want to do. Yes.
When does this start? Let's start on Monday.
Okay.
Okay. I love this.
We need to keep track too so we can be accountable. Like, I didn't do it today, or I did it today and I felt really good.
Okay. I love this. Okay.
I didn't know that was going to be one that we both shared, but I have two more that we don't have to go into depth or anything. I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
drop them as little teaser nuggets because I know one of them we're going to have a whole episode on. So we don't need to go into it now. But two things I think that we both need to work on for our internal self care. One of them is maybe akin to anxiety, is imposter syndrome. And I know we both share that
Ooh, that's
in
good.
several realms of our lives. And I will say, even with podcasting, this creeps up on me probably every week. I'm like, who are we to be putting this stuff out there? Like, who wants to listen to us talk? And I don't know, what do we know? Do you ever think about that with the podcast?
I don't.
That's great.
I think of it as we are two sister friends sharing our lives and being very open. So I think about it less of who are we to put our business out? Because I'm like, we're just having conversation and we're thrilled that people are joining our conversation. I do think about it like we're putting our business out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less impostery, more so of like, this is bold because we're putting all of our little stuff out there for everybody to judge because everybody has an opinion on something. So that's the way I feel about our podcast. It's more so like, it's a lot. It's a lot to put ourselves out there, but less about who are we because I don't think we're super cool. I think we're just having conversations and hoping that people will join us.
We are super cool today.
Well, maybe there is imposter syndrome then. There it is. So we're not super cool. No, but I hear you. I know what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah. But that's a big one. And I think we could spend a lot of time talking on that. So we'll just move on for now. But the last one that I know we're going to have deep and meaningful conversation about at some point on here is grief. Well, I guess grief and guilt kind of go side by side. But yeah, guilt is another one. Both of those things I think are just total cans of worms that we want to unpack in other conversations, but
Yeah.
we dropped a lot in that of the external versus internal self-care and real versus quote unquote fake self-care, and
Hmm.
full circle back to, I don't think those external actions of self-care are bad by any means. I love my massages, I love my baths. We want to go on a retreat. We want to infuse those things, those external acts into our lives, but they're not going to be what empowers us. Those things are not going to be the things that help us sleep at night. So,
Right. The internal work will then allow us to appreciate and to fully lean into the external activities.
absolutely.
Amen, sister.
Amen.
Whew.
There was a lot of stuff that we need to plug into our show notes this episode because we reference a lot of things. But will you show the Real Self Care book? Yep, we'll
Uh-huh.
drop that into the show notes as
Yeah.
well.
I mentioned a book, The 4 Hour Work Week. And
Mhm.
so we'll provide that information in the show notes as well. That helps us reset our brains from being busy to being productive, which is a part of taking our power back. So I'll drop that in the show notes as well.
Awesome. And you can, of course, find us on Instagram _ is a mother podcast. Please engage with us there and let us know what your self care looks like.
Hmm.
The external, the internal, all that good stuff, because, these are just two takes on self care.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. Thank you all for being with us today. Thank you for being part of our first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
And again, just thank you for allowing us to tell our stories. Thank you for engaging with us. We want to continue hearing from you and what you'd like us to discuss. And if there are any items that you'd like to add to the conversation, please engage with us. Drop us some notes, DM us, whatever that looks like. But we're appreciative of all of you for joining us. Peeve, thank you for always being so authentic and open. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for making the time ahead of your next surgery, which I hope we get that
Yeah,
date soon.
I hope so too.
We've gotten a couple of great pieces of feedback on our latest episode, which we always love. What we
Hmm.
would truly appreciate is a review. If you could rate and review us on whatever podcast streaming platform you use, that would go a long way to uplift our podcast and Jamie and I in this space. So we truly appreciate your effort there. And we did also get a suggestion for a podcast episode that we are going to implement. That it's going to be a follow-up to our financial planning episode. So I won't reveal what it's going to be, but it's going to be awesome. And what we would also love is recommendations for guests. We have guests every now and then. And so if you think of someone who would just be fantastic to have into the conversation, we would love to hear who they are and what they can
Yes.
bring to our community. So thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Beef.
Love ya.
This was awesome. Love you too. And hey, go call your best friend.
Thank you so much for listening and being part of our conversation and our inner circle.
Follow us on Instagram, _It's a Mother Podcast. And we look forward to you and your best friends joining us next episode.
Leave a rating on this podcast app. It really helps us get our conversations to more friends out there, more friendship circles, and more women and more mothers. And that's what we're here for, to broaden the conversation, to bring everybody into the circle.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Go call your best friend.